male is head shaved in the Mermaid Room of the Upstage Club in Asbury Park. He told me that he had a money-making outfit called Speed Limit 25. They were looking for a guitarist, and was I interested? I was broke, so I was. But so the genesis point of the E Street Band was actually a group that Vinny Lopez asked me to join to make a few extra dollars on the weekend. Shortly thereafter, I met Dan Federici. He was draped in a three-quarter length leather, had his red hair slicked back with his wife Flo. She was decked out in a blonde bouffant wig, and they were straight out of Flemington, New Jersey. So Vinny, Danny, myself, along with bass player Vinny Rosman, were shortly woodshedding out of a cottage on the main street of a lobster fishing town, Highlands, New Jersey. I first saw Gary Tallent, along with Southside Johnny, when they dragged two chairs out onto an empty dance floor as I plugged my guitar into the upstage wall of sound. I was the new kid in town, and these were the guys who owned the place, and they sat back and looked at me like, all right, come on, punk, bring it, let's see what you got. And I reached back and I burnt their house down. Great bass playing and his Southern gentleman's presence has anchored my band for 40 years. Thank you, Gary. Then one night, I wandered in the upstage and I was dumbstruck by a baby-faced 16-year-old David Sanchez. Davey was very, very unusual. He was a young black man who in 1968, Asbury Park, which was not a peaceful place. He crossed the tracks in search of musical adventure, and he blessed us with his talent and his love. He was my roomie in the early $2 to $1 $6 motel room years of the E Street Band. He was good. He kept his socks clean. It was love. Vinny was carrying around a snake around his neck at that time, so I lucked out with Davey as my roommate. And Davey's the only member of the group who ever actually lived on E Street. So he was, I walked in, and he was on the club's organ, and Davey is reserved now, but at the time, he danced like Sly Stone, and he played like Booker T, and he poured out soul and blues and jazz and gospel and rock and roll, and he had voicings on his keyboard that we just never heard before. It was just so full of soul and so beautiful. Davey, love you, and we still miss you so, you know. But predating all of this was Steve Van Zandt. The front man for a band called The Shadows. He had on a tie that went from here down to his feet, and all I remember was he was singing the Turtles' "Happy Together." And during a break at the Hullabaloo Club in New Jersey, you played 55 minutes on and 5 minutes off, and if there was a fight, you had to rush back on stage and start playing again. So I met Stevie there, and he soon became my great bass player first, then great guitarist, my consigliere, my dependable devil's advocate whenever I need one. He is the invaluable ears for everything that I create. I always get a hold of him, and fan number one. So he's my comic foil on stage, my fellow producer, arranger, and my blood as many lives as they'll give us. All right? Years and bands went by. Child, Steel Mill, the Bruce Springsteen Band. They were all some combo of the above-mentioned gang. And then I scored a solo recording contract with Columbia Records, and I argued to get to choose my recording sidemen, which was a misnomer in this case, if there ever was one. So I chose my band and my great friends, and we finally landed on E Street, a rare rock and roll hybrid of solo artistry and a true rock and roll band. But one big thing was missing. Street lamps of Kingsley Boulevard, and in walked Clarence Clemons. I'd been enthralled by the sax sounds of King Curtis and Junior Walker, and had searched for years for a great rock and roll saxophonist. And that night Clarence walked towards the stage, and he rose towering to my right on the Prince's tiny stage about the size of this podium. And then he unleashed the force of nature that was the sound and the soul of the big man. That moment, I knew that my life had changed. Miss you, love you, big man. Wish you were here with us tonight. This would mean a great deal to Clarence. An honorable mention and shout out to Ernie Boom Carter, drummer who played on one song only, Born to Run. So here's to you, Ernie. Thank you. And thank you, of course, Max Weinberg and Roy Bitt answered an ad in the Village Voice, and they beat out 60 other drummers and keyboardists for the job. It was the indefatigable, almost dangerously dedicated Mighty Max Weinberg and the fabulous flying fingers of Professor Roy Bitt. They refined and they defined the sound of the E Street Band that remains our calling card around the world to this day. Thank you, Roy. Thank you, Max. They are all professional hitmen. Then, 10 years later, Nils Lofgren and Patty Scalper joined just in time to assist us with the rebirth of Born in the USA. Nils, one of the world's great rock guitarists, with the Choir Boys voice, has given me everything he's had for the past 30 years. Thank you, Nils. So much love. And Patty Scalper, a Jersey girl, came down one weekend from New York City and sat in with the local band Cats on the Smooth Surface and Bobby Bandiera at the Stone Pony. And she sang a killer version of the Exciters' Tell 'Em. She had a voice that was filled with a little Ronnie Spector, a little Dusty Springfield, and a lot of something that was her very own. After she was done, I walked up, I introduced myself to her at the back bar. We grabbed a couple of stools, and we sat there for the next hour or 30 years or so.